Welcome to another episode of Dr. Bugatti. We're coming to you from the world famous Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Today we're going to talk about two specific cars. We're going to talk about the new McLaren W1 and the new Ferrari F80. But first of all, where am I? Let's see, I'm about, 2,000 feet in elevation. I'm at a place called Las Vegas Motor Speedway. To me, this is definitely one of my top two speedways that I've ever been to, both domestic and foreign. This place is unbelievable. A good friend of mine invited me down here for the NASCAR race, and if you haven't seen a NASCAR race, it's gonna blow your mind. This track, to the east of us, we've got mountains. To the west of us, we've got mountains. To the north of us, we've got mountains. And then to the south of us, you have this beautiful skyline of the Las Vegas Strip with all the mega hotels and all the casinos. So what was I doing here? If you haven't been to a NASCAR race and you haven't seen a NASCAR race at the Speedway, oh man, it's unbelievable. These NASCAR races, man, you've got these cars, they're all packed. And they're just going around this track, this oval in a pack. And when they're going around this oval, they're knocking at 200 miles an hour. They're like 196, 198, 193. They're hitting close to 200 miles an hour, which is just a sight to behold. And when you're watching it on video, it doesn't really do justice. So besides that speed is the sound. These guys are nothing but, this is nothing but rolling thunder that just will not stop. So with the cars flying by, with the sound of the engines and then the crowd cheering, the level of excitement is so high that you feel like you're about to explode. So this is definitely a track that you have to come to. I think it's like on 1,000 acres. In addition to that, this track hosts the largest music festival in the world called EDC. Within a 3-day period, over 500,000 people show up here. 500,000, golly, And then they've got multiple I think they can land like 8 to 10 helicopters at a time. I mean, it's an unbelievable venue. So let's get down to the meat. McLaren W1. A few weeks ago, McLaren launched their W1. Their W1 hypercar / supercar, whatever they want to call it. Give me 1 second. Hey, honey, I got to call you right back. I'm filming, okay? Okay, love you, bye. So anyway, so McLaren launched the W1. When they launched the W1, the successor to the McLaren P1, it's not a successor to an F1. Okay, we know that. I was a little disappointed because from the McLaren MP4-12C to the McLaren Speedtail, the $3 million car, they're using a V8 engine. Why another V8? Okay, this is brand new. They're using a flat plane crank. Okay, I understand that, but I thought that you would come to the table with something that's naturally aspirated, but they show up with a V8 engine. Okay, flat plane crank. Corvette Z06 has it. Corvette ZR1 has it. I think the older Ferrari 2005 430s had it. Okay, yeah, it's great, but I just felt something naturally aspirated they would come to the table with. Okay. A few days later, a week later or so, Ferrari drops the Ferrari F80, the LaFerrari replacement car. So I'm talking to a buddy of mine. He's in Italy. He's at the F80 release party. And I said, hey, how's the car? He says, Obi, the F80 is bananas. I'm like, what engine is in that thing? Because I heard a rumor that the F80 was coming out with a V6. And he said, Obi, it's a 6-cylinder. I'm like, oh my God. They put a 6-cylinder in their hypercar? In the LaFerrari replacement car? Anyway, let me get up my notes. So I'm just sitting there and I'm like, oh man, I was very disappointed in that. But then again, Ferrari can build anything. They can put a 4-cylinder engine in that car. It's still gonna sell. And I understand that, the V6, Formula One is using V6. Some people might say, well, you know what, Mercedes-Benz has the AMG 1 and that's also a V6. I understand that. I just felt that to differentiate themselves, to stay at that upper echelon, that they would drop a naturally aspirated, hot, 12-cylinder. Right now, the best sounding 12-cylinder, the best sounding engine, period, is a Gordon Murray T50 with that naturally aspirated 12-cylinder. anytime you turbocharge, you know, a V8 or a V6 or even a V12, the sound goes down. It muffles the true sound of that engine. And when you muffle that true sound of that engine, you know, all that visceralness tends to dissipate. And in addition to that, it tends to dilute the emotion of the car when you're driving it. And emotion is critical with these cars. Let's look at the specs, okay? So I got the specs here. So the McLaren W1 has 1,275 horsepower. Certain areas may show 1,258 horsepower. The difference between the two is that one is based on metric system and one is based on an imperial system. But all right, let's just use 1,275 horsepower for the McLaren W1. The Ferrari F80 has 1,200 horsepower, okay? So let's break it down. Both cars are hybrid, so they got a hybrid battery. So let's break it down. Let's see what is the actual engine producing in both of these cars and what, you know, are the battery figures, the horsepower from the batteries. Bottom line, the engine, the V8 engine, McLaren W1, is producing 915 horsepower. The V8 turbocharged motor, McLaren W1, 915 horsepower. The six-cylinder in the Ferrari F80 is producing 900 horsepower. That's a lot of horsepower for a 3-liter six-cylinder. It's a lot of power, but it's producing 900 horsepower. Let's look at the batteries. So the hybrid battery, or the high voltage battery rather, in the McLaren W1 is producing 342 horsepower. The hybrid battery, or the high voltage battery in the Ferrari F80 is producing 300 horsepower. Okay, let's look at the torque figures, because torque is what gets you that oomph, that off the line 0 to 60, you know, and horsepower gets you your terminal velocity. Horsepower is going to get you your top end, torque is going to get you, you know, off the line. Torque on the McLaren is 988 foot-pounds of torque. Torque on the F80 is 805 pounds of torque on the F80. So with that being said, the McLaren is generating more horsepower and more torque than the F80, okay? Here comes the critical part, weight. It's all about the weight. Yeah, anybody can add power, whoop-de-doo, no big deal, but how much weight can you save? The McLaren is coming in at 3,084 pounds, 3,084. And then the F80 is coming in at 3,362 pounds, 3,362. So the McLaren is about 280 pounds lighter. So the McLaren has more power, okay, and is lighter than the F80. So with that being said, on paper, the McLaren should be faster 0 to 60. It all depends on the gearing. And the McLaren should also handle better. Let's look at the numbers. Let's look at the numbers, okay? The build numbers. McLaren is stating that they're going to build 399 McLaren W1s. Ferrari is stating that they're going to build 799 F80 coupes. Man, I said to myself, 799 F80 coupes? This can't be the real car. This cannot be the real successor to the LaFerrari. There's no way. Yeah, you know, Ferrari, listen, and on top of that, let's look at the design elements, you know, the design language. Ferrari has to, listen, if that F80, if you remove the badge, you would not know it's a Ferrari. You would not know it's a Ferrari because they've taken this design language off to another trajectory, you know? You know, it's boxier, you know, a little brickish looking, you know, it's got more edges. It kind of, certain elements reminded me of that Tonka toy Lego type of a deal. So I wasn't really too thrilled, but then again, it's a Ferrari. Ferrari can build whatever they want. Everybody's gonna buy it just because of its history, because of its pedigree, because of what they have done for the past 80 years. So Ferrari can do and build whatever they want. They will be desirable. They are the most desirable brand at that level, in a luxury level, in a hypercar level, supercar level, mega car level, if you want to call it. Ferrari's there, and the level of desirability is going to be very, very high. And all 799 cars that they're building for the world, they could sell them in LA. All those cars can be sold in Beverly Hills, like that, okay? But this is global production, we know that. 799 for the world. We don't know what their convertibles are going to be because remember, they had 499 LaFerrari coupes and 210 LaFerrari Apertas, the convertible version. So I'm curious to see what the convertible version was going to be. So by looking at and again, I'm a little bit biased towards Ferrari. One of the reasons being because I ran a Ferrari dealership for just over 6 years. So I know the culture of Ferrari and how they think. It's a little bit complicated. And one thing about people that work for Ferrari and that they run Ferrari, they're very, very proud employees of the brand. This is something that I really like about Ferrari. Their employees are very, very proud of the brand. And Ferrari, I think, in Italy, is like a jewel in the country of Italy. So I started thinking. I said to myself, I do not believe that this Ferrari F80 is really the car. Ferrari started the Icona series, if you remember, right? So they came out with the SP1, SP2 Monza, naturally aspirated 12-cylinder, and then they came out with the SP3 Daytona, naturally aspirated motor. SP3 Daytona has a removable roof. So I said, there's got to be a 12-cylinder that's coming. I believe this F80 is strictly just one big, massive, mega appetizer, to whet everybody's palate. But the real car, the real 12-cylinder, has got to be behind this car. And it's probably going to be even more limited. And maybe they're going to drop it and switch everything into the Icona series. That's where I see this thing going. Because at 799 cars, a few hundred more, man, this is a full production. This looks like a full production vehicle to me, the F80, Back to the McLaren. The McLaren, again, I mentioned about the V8, across the board. I know they got, the Artura with the 6-cylinder, the hybrid. But with that being said, it seems to me that McLaren has done a very good job with the car. Time will tell to see what the market is like, how the market responds to it, and what the pricing is going to be. Most of these cars, when they're built, the manufacturers make the owners sign a first right of refusal, meaning that they cannot sell that car for a certain period of time. The LaFerrari, I think the time period on that was 18 months. This new F80, I don't know what they're going to restrict it to, but they normally make all these individuals, because to get a McLaren W1 and to get a Ferrari F80 is a privilege. It doesn't matter how much money you have. McLaren's going to select who they want to have these cars, and Ferrari's going to select who they want to have these cars. So it's a privilege, and they really want it to go to the end user, to a client that's not a speculator that's trying to flip it. So with that being said, talking about the motors, the V8 in the McLaren, look what the Corvette did. Okay, we know it's a Corvette, but look what they did with their twin turbo V8, flat plane crank, generating over 1,000 horsepower with no batteries. And in addition to that, they just broke 233 mile an hour top speed. So the ZR1 is faster than the F80, and it's also faster than the W1. And a lot of people are gonna say, yeah, but it's not in the same league. I agree. I'm just saying, if you look power, performance, because people buy these cars for the performance. And then when you look at the Bugatti, look at the direction Bugatti took. Bugatti, the Veyron, the 16-cylinder 4 turbos, the Chiron, 16 cylinders, 4 turbos. Bugatti comes out with a naturally aspirated V16, 1,000 horsepower. So it's all about the sound. One thing about driving these cars is the engine is a critical function of the driving experience. And even one of the designers of Ferrari said that if you take away that 12-cylinder and you put in a turbocharged V8 or even a V6, it takes away the emotion. That emotion is a big component of that driving experience, and it comes from that engine. A lot of people just turn off their radios, because they just want to hear the engine, and it's all about the engine. It's all about the sound of the engine. You're not going to get that with the F80. You're not going to get that sound. Basically the sound is gone. So that's a big disappointment. I'm sure, I don't know if they're making some type of artificial sound, but I'm sure it's going to be, some people are going to take a back seat, and think about this for a minute. The bottom line is that a lot of these people apparently, allegedly again, when they were selected to receive this car like the F80, a lot of them did not know it was a 6-cylinder in it until it was divulged to them, at the meeting, at the release. McLaren, on the other hand, the W1, I believe that car is going to do well just because of the build numbers. It's 399. The Ferrari F80 comes in at a base price of $3.9 million, and that's without any options. So let's just call it $4 million. So you got a car that's going to be coming in around 4.2 to 4.5, depending on how these guys spec it out, whether it's going to be tailor-made or it's going to have the custom paint or custom interior. So it's an expensive car. It's an expensive car over $4 million is an expensive car for a car with a 6-cylinder engine, but it's got that Ferrari badge on it. So I think that the F80 is definitely going to push up. It's definitely going to push up the LaFerraris in terms of value. That's what I see. Because you have the LaFerrari that is, no offense, but the LaFerrari is a better design car than the F80. And some people may crucify me on that, but again, I'm telling you what I think. I'm telling you my thoughts and my perspective on that car. The McLaren W1, you know, after looking at the F80, I kind of like the McLaren W1 a little bit more. At least, you know, a V8, in my opinion, is better than a 6-cylinder, you know, in a halo car. And plus, Ferrari's history has been 12 cylinders from day one, I think. You know, it's been 12 cylinders. So it's going to be very interesting to see how these cars, you know, mix it in the market. And in addition to that, it's going to be interesting to see how the Bugatti Tourbillon, which is already sold out, I think, what are they building, 250 for the world. So, you know, the Bugatti Tourbillon is a little bit more exclusive. The McLaren W1 is the next level up, and then we've got the Ferrari F80. There are other cars out there. We know about the Gordon Murray T50 and the T50S, which is a track car. T50, 99 cars, all sold out. And then we know we got Christian Koenigsegg. He's delivering the Jesko, whatever they want to call it, which to me that's a badass car because in addition to, you know, the horsepower and the brand and the experience, a lot of these people, they really want to see performance. They want to see performance and they want to see handling. And the Koenigsegg Jesko, what is it? They call the Jesko Attack and the Jesko Absolute. The Jesko Absolute is, I think, designed to go over 300 miles an hour. So it's going to be interesting to see the new mix of cars that are coming into the market. Yep, there's an Air Force base right down the street, so you're hearing the jets fly over. I'm a few miles away from Nellis Air Force Base here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. This is not being sponsored by the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. This is just me being up here and doing a podcast for you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you at the next podcast. Out.